Hi everyone, I'm Dawn. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for visiting with me today. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel, The Cutting Board. We do all kinds of different things here. It's kind of a variety. We do true crime content, we do DIY projects, SFX makeup, which I haven't done in a while, but I need to get back into that. We do a lot of food content, hauls, vlogs, and my favorite, Disney content. So I have a lot of interests, and I want to share them with you. So I hope you join me. Just a note, in this video, I will be using the term mistreatment or mistreat in lieu of the A word that YouTube does not like. And that is not an attempt to minimize what it is. It's just because YouTube doesn't like the A word. In this video, I wanted to discuss Sherry Franke, the daughter of convicted child mistreater Ruby Franke, and also Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who, as you all know, alleges she was mistreated by her mother, that she had her boyfriend at the time unalive. Now I have both of their books right here. And I purchased Sherry's book, but don't worry, I did not purchase Gypsy's book. My friend's mom, she is a big-time Gypsy supporter, and she bought it, and after she read it, she gave it to her daughter, my friend, and then my friend gave it to me when she was done with it. So it's just kind of been passed down. So my friend's mom, she's not on social media, so she doesn't know all the ins and outs about all the outrage against Gypsy. So, you know, don't come for her. She's a very sweet lady, and it's just her good heart that makes her support Gypsy. And in fact, I don't fault anyone that supports Gypsy Rose. I'm not just going to fault people for that. They see things the way they see them. The opposition, like myself, sees things the way we see them. I did it. I'm wearing a very fuzzy sweater. You know, it's nothing worth fighting over. It's nothing worth arguing over, ending relationships over. You know, I am friendly with people that support Gypsy all the time. I love them. I'm not going to let feelings about Gypsy mess with my relationships. It's ridiculous. We all are entitled to our own opinions, and it's fine. It's fine. The reason I want to discuss this is because I saw a TikTok where someone questioned why we support Sherry but not Gypsy. I wish I could find the TikTok, but of course now I can't. But we'll discuss it nonetheless. Some of y'all may have seen it if you're on TikTok. And maybe it's just me, but I don't find it difficult to see the vast differences between Sherry and Gypsy. The only thing they might have in common is a monster mom, but we don't know that to be true with Dee Dee, with Gypsy. We know Sherry's mom, Ruby, is a monster. She's, you know, currently doing a minimum of 4 years, maximum of 30 years in prison for what she's done. Now, I know it's 60 years, you know, $15 maximum for each charge, but according to Utah law, the maximum aggregate sentence is 30 years, so she won't get more than 30 years. We don't know what Dee Dee did. We only know what has been revealed by Gypsy's case, and, you know, and most of us don't trust those revelations, not really, you know, and I'm going to read from an article by Amy Punt. It was on the Medium, and it was titled Gypsy Rose Blanchard's Lies. Is Gypsy Rose dangerous? Gypsy Rose Blanchard's story about the night she and her boyfriend, Nicholas Godejohn, unalived her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, keeps shifting like sand. From her testimony during Godejohn's trial to the HBO documentary, Mommy, Dead, and Dearest, to the Lifetime docuseries, The Prison Confessions of Gypsy Rose. It has shaved the edges off and even changed details from statements surrounding why she unalived her mother, whose idea it was, and what happened in the hours leading up to it. The reason I read this is because I think it nicely summarizes why Gypsy isn't highly trusted. She's not highly regarded or loved. I look at it, and to me, and probably to most, if not all of you, and can clearly see the differences. But I guess not everyone sees it. And I don't fault anyone for that. I just see people are looking at it in a different way. But I do have a hard time understanding why Sherry and Gypsy would even be brought up together. In my opinion, and just my opinion, their stories, their experiences are completely different. With Sherry, excuse me, with Sherry, we as an audience saw with our own eyes some of the mistreatment. Not all of it, which, as we all know now, was just way worse than some of us could have even imagined. And what we were imagining, what we were imagining was going on in the Franke household was pretty bad, and it was worse than what we imagined. All anyone saw with Gypsy and Dee Dee was kind of a loving, caring, maybe overbearing and over-the-top mom. But oftentimes, that is how people with, something to hide will behave. They're perfect angels to the public, to the outside world. No one definitively knows if Dee Dee was what Gypsy says. No one definitively knows that. And we can only assume that Gypsy was... It's only our assumption that Gypsy was never mistreated by her mom. We can't say for sure because we have no idea. Personally, I believe Dee Dee was a mistreater in some way. I don't necessarily believe the Munchausen by proxy spin, but I do believe something was going on in that household. But I don't believe she deserved what happened to her. That part I don't believe. I also believe Gypsy could have walked away, and that's something that comes up a lot. And she could have told someone. All the evidence would have pointed to Dee Dee. I think, she could have told about the scamming and the malingering. And I understand, what it's like to be afraid, but, Gypsy was more sophisticated than she would have us believe. She definitely was. But she could have told someone she didn't want to get caught in the scam, is what I believe. Another very clear reason we support Sherry, there is actual footage of Sherry's younger brother getting help. He escaped and, got help. Gypsy never tried to get any help at all. I mean, it's like she went from one thing to the end, And I know she has explained why, but people don't believe her. There is much more damning evidence against Ruby than there was or has been against Dee Dee. Evidence, not people's statements, but evidence. And obviously the Blanchard household was weird. I mean, it was weird. And if the case was that Gypsy really was mistreated and she went to the police, Dee Dee would have been found out and would probably be in prison herself, if not for mistreatment of Gypsy, definitely for her scams. But with that, it's possible Gypsy would have gotten in trouble for the scams as well. So, and maybe that has something to do with Gypsy planning what she did. Another reason people support Sherry and not so much Gypsy, Sherry didn't alive her mother. Sherry, she didn't manipulate an autistic man into unaliving her mom. Sherry didn't ruin lives. Several lives were ruined because of Gypsy. Dee Dee's, of course, but also Nicholas. Even though I believe he is still responsible for his own actions, and I know that there are some people that believe he didn't have any part in the unaliving at all, I believe he did. You know, people say, well, there was no blood spatter or anything. And I researched blood spatter, and that can have a lot to do with resting heart rate, the position she was laying in, and because of her weight, blood pools when your body is at rest sometimes. And so there are several factors that could have resulted in there not being any or much spatter. So that, we can throw that out the window. But anyway, there are a lot of people that don't believe Nicholas even did it. I believe he did, just from my own research. I believe he did. And I think he should be held responsible for what he did. Just saying. I'm not trying to make anyone mad. It's just what I think. And then Gypsy also destroyed Nicholas's mom. Sherry did nothing to ruin lives. Ruby and her partner, Jody, ruined their own lives, however, and they could have ended a few lives. It looked like it was coming pretty close to the end for those two little ones. But the children will heal, although it will take a long time, maybe a large portion of their life. Now, we know Ruby was an evil parent, and we don't truly know that about Dee Dee. We just don't know that. You can speculate all you want, but we don't know that for certain. People on both sides can speculate, but the fact is, none of us really know. People don't trust Gypsy because there are so many unanswered questions, regarding things, that just don't make any sense at all. We trust Sherry because she has not given anyone a reason not to trust her. And we've seen plenty of evidence against Ruby again. Gypsy said, I couldn't just jump out of the wheelchair because I was afraid and I didn't know what my mother would do. I didn't have anyone to trust. But what about Aaliyah? I know there's some explanation of why she didn't trust her, but towards the end, she started realizing she could. And I know she claims that she was scared, and I understand that, but I just don't see her making any effort before, any other attempts, any other plans. She didn't have any other plan. I mean, her very first genius idea was to unalive her mother. She went to the darkest thing you could do. And by her own admission, she tried to unalive her mother before with the BB gun, when she thought she was using a real gun when it was just a BB gun. And I believe there was one other time she tried to unalive her, but I could not find any information about that. So if you know, leave it in the comments. And I know that I have said this 1 million times, but in that hours-long interrogation, she never once, not one time, mentioned being forced to live in a wheelchair. She never once mentioned being mistreated by her mother. Never. And at that point, there was no fear of Dee Dee. Her mom was dead. There was no fear of her anymore. She could have said something. And maybe someone has asked this, but I haven't seen anyone ask her. All the interviews I've seen with Gypsy Rose have been little softball interviews, and I'm sorry the camera keeps vibrating. But why didn't someone say, why didn't you say anything about how your mother was mistreating you in the interrogation? That didn't come to light until her attorney got a hold of the case. So I want to know why she didn't say anything in that whole interrogation. And it wasn't brought up in the case even until her attorney spun the story. Up until that point, it was all so Gypsy and Nicholas could be together. It was about being with a boy. She also said that Dee Dee would monitor her computer usage, which I find interesting. Then how was she able to carry on BDSM conversations with men online? I don't understand that if her activity is being monitored by her mother. We saw some of what Ruby was doing. We saw video footage of her emaciated son go to a neighbor for help. We saw all of the weird journal entries. We heard Ruby, I'm sorry. We heard Ruby in more than one video say that her children weren't going to eat dinner if they didn't behave. I'm sorry, Django decided it was time to turn my camera off. So, but anyway, we know how Ruby was treating her children. We know that. I just think the reasons people support Sherry Frankie and don't really support Gypsy Rose are clear. They're obvious. But I mean, sometimes you've got to, and I don't mean this in a rude way, but you've really got to spell things out for people. But anyway, that's all for this video. I just wanted to bring this up. Do you think that was even a good question for this TikToker to ask? Why do we support one and not the other? And I've heard this question come up regarding Gypsy Rose versus the Menendez brothers. And to me, it's obvious why Sherry garners so much support where Gypsy does not. And their stories are nowhere really near the same. One is an ambitious young woman who is succeeding at life despite what her mother has done to her. And the other is a glorified murderer. And, that can't be denied. There's no denying that that's what's happening. Gypsy pled guilty to second degree. So it's not an opinion. That is a fact. But that's all for now. Thank you so much for visiting. And if you are interested in Sherry's book, you can get it at any bookstore. And you can also get it on Amazon. And I will provide a link for it. You can also get Gypsy's book on Amazon, but you all know that. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to everyone later. Bye.